Welcome to the program, Frank. It's great to have you back on. Looking forward to chatting.
Looking forward to being here. Thanks for having me back, Simon.
And we were just saying beforehand, I obviously met you in New York just as COVID hit, which seems like an eternity ago, but amazing how much the world has changed in that time.
It really has. I'm certainly happy that I met you when I did, because if it were not for that opportunity, we would not have been together. But the world has certainly changed.
And ironically, I've not been able to go overseas since that trip. So the New York trip was literally my last flight.
Yeah, well, that was a nice pint we had. So
it was
a good time.
And Frank, just for the listeners, then since then you were at in the treasurer role at Horizon Blue before. Are you still in that role now? How have things changed in the sort of 18 months or 2 years really since we did the podcast?
Yeah, no, I'm still in that role. The nice thing is we've continued to kind of expand. I've been taking over our sourcing and procurement operations, been reporting into me, so I've been working on that, as well as doing some vendor management work, which is important. But really excited that we've built out our investment team. So that's been an issue that we've been tackling. And then also we've been doing a lot of work around just continuing our improvements in Treasury with a big focus on Treasury analytics. So a lot of it's been our continued growth path that we've been working on for a period of time.
And when you say focus on the analytics, what are you going down sort of the RPA, AI? What's the sort of technology you're pushing down that path?
Yeah, so a couple of things that we've been really focused on. So cash forecasting, especially in our business, is very difficult because the cash flows are, a lot of times you get government payments in, whether it's from the state or federal government, and then you have just deviations in claims payments. And so there's no statistical model that we've worked that's really been able to really forecast cash flows effectively, because you need to just know, hey, this payment's going to come on this date, and there may be no rhyme or reason. You have to incorporate that. And so we've struggled. We've tried statistical models, and lately we've been trying some AI models and building that out. And we found that that's somewhat been a struggle. That being said, it seems like everybody's kind of struggled with this, as I've been speaking with individuals, at least in our business, in terms of AI cash flow forecasting. But that's a continued growth area that we're going to continue to look at. And then we're also looking at RPAs. I think there's a lot of opportunity with just some manual processes and to put those RPAs in place. And so we're kind of continuing on that path this year. I think there's opportunity there. And that, my view is, let's free up people to do the value-added tasks that we need to do. So we've been busy. And
how's the team coped with the COVID-19 and the lockdowns and the work from home, remote sort of scenarios?
So everybody's done really well. It's funny because if you ask me, and I tell this to my team all the time, if you ask me whether or not we'd be able to work a treasury team with trading and all our operations remote, 100% remote, I never would have believed you. And here it's been over a year now. We've done it exceptionally well. And I really credit the team. I mean, we got home, we figured out, okay, we have to sign a lot of things, just opening up accounts. So how are we doing this if we're all remote? Do we need scanners? Are we going to switch to DocuSign? What are we doing from a policies and procedures perspective? How do we worry we're not going to fall victim to social engineering attempts since we're not in the office? And what if we get these emails that come through? And so the team's really stepped up and has done a great job. And so it's been a new dynamic, but I've been really impressed with how everybody's grown, and we're in a much better spot now as a result of that. So I feel like we transitioned well. Sometimes you do your best work when you put under pressure, right?
Definitely. I think adversity is one that creates ingenuity. So I think you're spot on there. And Frank, you were saying that you're missing the office and you're keen to get back in. Are you going to be looking at bringing everyone back to office, or what's your sort of policy from a treasury perspective going to be around that remote moving forward?
Yeah, no, I mean, I like I said, I've been impressed with everybody working remotely. So my personal philosophy is let everybody, do what works best for them. Obviously, companies have their own policies, and we'll follow whatever the company policies are around that. But, I'm certainly not going to advocate anybody else, to come in above and beyond what the company wants. And so, I voluntarily said, when we had the first opportunity, I'd love to come back in the office. I miss it, seeing people. It's a great feeling. I have suits that I bought that I just love to put on again. But, I think that from my team's perspective, I told them, just because I'm coming into the office doesn't mean you need to come into the office. I'm being it because I want to be there. If you want to be there, great. I would love to see you. If not, because you're not comfortable, then that's fine too. I think everybody has a different level of comfort. Some people are vaccinated and feel comfortable. Other people are not, or even they're vaccinated and they're concerned because they have to take public transit, whatever the case may be. And so, my view is, as a manager, I want to be flexible. If you have talented people, give them some flexibility, and it creates a better environment for everyone.
Now, one of the big things I've noticed, and we've sort of alluded to this before, Frank, but networking has been pretty challenging during this lockdown. What's been your approach to sort of getting out there? I know you're quite a social person and like to meet up. How have you gone about it in this time?
It's certainly been difficult. That's for sure. I would say that one of the things that I've tried to do over the period was, reach out to people that I hadn't spoke with in a while. There's been people on LinkedIn that I hadn't spoke with, say, hey, how's everything doing? How are you treating? And then someone say, let's set a time. I'm also on a couple of industry panels with other treasurers. I'm in a corporate treasurers group through the conference board, and there's a great team of treasurers there. And I've reached out to some of them. We'd have these virtual meetings, and somebody would say something that I thought was really interesting, and I'd follow up with them offline. Those are really good events. Actually, I would say, I'm not sure if you've done it, but if you go to these virtual events where you're in these breakout rooms or something, that's kind of hard to connect with people. Everybody's talking. But if you see somebody that, is interesting, that was really something that I could learn a lot about. And I've kind of reached out to them, and I always like to learn from people. And so trying to connect with people individually and setting up, 30 minutes of their time if they're open to it, it's been a great way for me to network.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I've struggled with the most, I think, over this time period is you go to the virtual conferences, and when there's a lot of people there, it's really hard to actually have a conversation with anyone. So I'm the same as you. I've then taken that offline and just reached out offline to basically say, can we just pick up a conversation? Have a virtual coffee, so to speak, and just spend 10, 15 minutes with people one-on-one rather than just being in that big environment, because with conferences all being cancelled, you can't just go to the breakout rooms or the coffee places at the conference and bump into people. So that's definitely been a challenge, and one that for someone like me that makes a living out of networking, there's no easy way to do that. You've literally got to meet people face to face, and it's just making an effort. I think that's what I've had to do.
Yeah, it's hard, honestly. I mean, you have great conversations with people, but listen, I like Zoom and I love technology. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the same as when you're just sitting talking with someone one-on-one, having a drink. I mean, Simon, it's great talking to you and keeping in touch, but it was great seeing you, having a pint at the bar in the middle of New York City, across the street from Central Park. You just get to connect with people on a personal level that, unfortunately, you can't do as much on Zoom. And so you make the best of what you can, but hopefully we'll get back to that in-person connection at some point. I'm optimistic.
I think we definitely will. And I'm hanging out for it. It definitely is one of my favorite parts of the job. Frank, obviously we talk about the networking thing. The other thing that's really changed dramatically is hiring and doing that remotely over the COVID period. What have you guys done as a business, and how have you been able to cope with actually bringing new people into the business?
Yeah, so I'm actually shocked. So we had it's funny, our investment director that we hired probably 2 weeks before the world blew up. We were assembling a new team. And so we had one investment analyst she's really good. And I hired a new director of investments that came on board, and I was onboarding her through the process. And about 2 weeks into the job, we have over $5 billion portfolio. I'm trying to, get her up to speed on Bloomberg, the trading mechanics, everything that we have going on, and we got to go remote. And so it was certainly a challenge. And so, but luckily I was able to meet her in advance, an interview, but then we had to build out a team. We had two positions on the investment side that we were building out, and we hired people completely through Zoom. Never met them before in person. And, onboarded them online, mailed them their laptop, never saw anyone. And I'll challenge myself, right? If you would have asked me whether or not you can hire people remotely, like, no, because how are you really going to be able to do that, right? I'd be wrong. I was absolutely wrong. We hired two really talented individuals to join the team, completely remote, and I've been nothing but impressed, and the work quality has been exceptional. And so certainly better than I would have possibly imagined. You know, you have to evolve, right? And so you change the times, you change how you do business, and it's worked out well.
And do you think on the back of that, with you allowing the team to work remotely and having had that work successfully, that you would consider remote people moving forward in the team?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, the challenge always is corporate policies, right? Because you have labor laws of different states, at least in the United States. Then you have international labor laws, which are always problematic. But I would say, you know, if the company was comfortable with it, I have no issues with it. And so one of the things that I believe in is everybody has, you know, one of the first bosses I worked for, you know, kind of said this, and I still believe this day is absolutely true. Everybody's got their own personal equation, right? It's like, you know, money, title, you know, work-life balance, career growth, right? Whatever it is. And so, but everybody's equation is a little different. And so if you want to be a successful manager, and I'm sure I could be better, but I try to do the best, is figure out what works for everyone and give them their own special equation. So if some people feel like they need a little more remote, you know, that's great. You know, if you give me exceptional work ethic, then I can work. If other person, you know, maybe, you know, they're okay with being in the office, but they need the career path. Well, being in the office is good because especially if you're younger in the career, you can get more exposure to people and kind of learn the ropes and get more visibility. So, you know, different things for different people, right? And so that's going to tailor. But yeah, absolutely. I think I'm not opposed to remote because of the success that the team's demonstrated in my experience with it.
And interestingly, I think that it's definitely what the candidate population wants. Is I'm hearing it a lot, you know, remote and work from home is really important to a lot of people. I think, you know, not having commute times, being able to have flexibility in their personal life. I think most people are saying to me that they're working longer hours. So they're actually more committed than they were going into it, but they like that flexibility of being able to work when they want to work and do the things that they want to do outside of that rather than the 9 to 5. So I'll be intrigued to see how, as we come off this remote scenario out of necessity, how many businesses offer that and what people really want moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a changing dynamic as a result. And so companies and hiring managers are going to have to adapt. I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we'll see a change on the back of that, Frank. You know, there'll be certain companies that go really aggressive on it to attract the talent that they want. And there'll be others who perhaps are not as forward thinking, who perhaps lose people that they didn't want to lose. So I don't know where it's going to end up, but I do think that it's going to be a changing dynamic over the coming years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, listen, I've received calls from people saying, hey, we have a job, you can work 100% remote. And I'm sure people on my team have well. So it's, you know, that really opens up the candidate universe for those companies that are comfortable with it. So certainly an opportunity.
Definitely. And one question I always ask is, you know, what are the keys to a successful treasurer? How do you think that's changed since we last spoke, or has it changed?
Yeah, you know, I think the overall idea of what it takes to be a successful treasurer probably hasn't changed a lot, but perhaps how you can actually be effective in a remote environment has probably shifted a little bit. And so, you know, one of the things that a lot of, you know, treasury departments would rely on is, you know, especially when you're in capital markets, you know, everybody's kind of sitting around each other. You have team meetings, you're whiteboarding stuff. You're having office chatter. You can have a quick impromptu meeting. You catch somebody in the elevator. And so that's gone away. And so in order to really get that collaboration, you know, you need to kind of figure out ways to do that because you can't just lean over to somebody and kind of have that conversation. So, you know, teams have used instant messages probably more than normal. Probably not the most effective way of communication, but that's a quick way to ask somebody a question. One of the things that we've done is really tried to put up goals for everyone and track them throughout the year, not just kind of at review time, like doing a weekly status. In fact, one of the hires that we brought on board just used this new tool with a Kanban board. I've never heard of it. He showed me, and put up the whole team's goals, what everybody's working on, so everybody can communicate real time. And so that's been really important of things that you need to do. So as a treasurer, you need to figure out everybody's remote. You got to work toward a goal. How can you redesign the tools to empower your team to be successful? And then I think the other thing that's probably changed is, you're probably having less interactions with key people that you need to talk to in the business. And so the treasurers really need to be plugged in. So otherwise you'll just be forgotten about, right? Because people don't generally worry about cash. They just assume it's already there. And so you need to make time to speak with the business leaders and get on everybody's calendar, say, hey, what's coming down? What business changes are being made? Because if you're out of the loop, you really can't be effective in your job, because you need to present, hey, this is something that's coming up. This is maybe an alternative way we could structure something. Oh, this is something that you need to be aware of. And if you're not in the loop, then you're not going to be as effective. So, again, it comes down to, you got to be a little more proactive about taking the time to speak with people. I think that's what's probably changed more than anything.
Definitely. And I guess that leads in as well, like when you talk about the team, training and developing and making sure that people are being, that they're learning as much as they can when they're not being able to sit next to you or overhear things, I would imagine is a big one as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly a challenge. So we've been working through that like everybody else, but it brings its own dynamics.
Yeah, it's definitely one that you can't avoid it, unfortunately. Like if you're not sitting side by side, you can't tell someone, can you? Technology's great,
No,
but it's limited. Frank, thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure to chat, and I look forward to having another pint in New York sometime soon, but not sure when that's going to be.
That'd be great. Great talking to you, Simon. Thanks for having me.